And welcome back to Hoopsville. I want to thank all my guests for joining me on the show tonight, in this specially pre-recorded show, as you got a drift if you listen to the whole thing. I want to thank Gary Stewart at Stevenson for joining us. Really appreciate him taking the time out of his busy schedule to join us there at Stevenson. Also want to thank Lauren Avant and Sydney Moss. Lauren Avant from Rhodes and Sydney Moss from Thomas More. Also thanks to Dan Engelstad at Southern Vermont, and of course Gordon Mann from D3Hoops.com. Also to all those other programs, thank their SIDs and support staff for hooking us up and getting us the ability to chat with those players and or coaches as well. So it's been a great start to the first week of the season, as we all know. We got lots of basketball ahead of us. We are a week away from Thanksgiving, when there's always a little bit of a lull. There's certainly a lot of football going on that gets a lot of attention on the weekends, but that does not mean there isn't good basketball going on out there. And something I think I'm going to try and encourage this year that Gordon Mann pointed out, get out to a game. I don't care if it's your team or not. There is really good basketball around. And in some places, certainly there is more of an island. You may not be able to get to a game necessarily, but maybe instead of going to a men's game only, go to the doubleheader and catch the women's team as well. Or if you're in an area that's populated by a lot of schools, go look at the schedules at D3Hoops.com. Find a game that might be in your area at a time that you can go and check them out. These student athletes are playing really good brands of basketball, and when we start getting into late January, February, and then obviously into March, and you want to know who the best teams are in the country, or you want to know if who you saw is all that good, you now have a barometer because you've seen them in action as well. Gordon, Pat, and I, and Keith at football, and Frank at football, and others, we keep a tabulation of who we watch and who we have seen in action. We have certain guidelines by that. We also count arenas. And it's always great to kind of look through the list and go, wow, I've seen 100 schools play basketball, let's say. Or I've seen 50 schools play football. Or I've seen 30 schools play lacrosse. And I've been to 75 arenas or something crazy like that. It's kind of a cool thing to just kind of go, that's awesome. So, hey, do it yourself. You don't have to be on our list necessarily. We have certain guidelines, like you have to be at half of a game, for example. And going to an arena and not seeing a game doesn't count as being to the arena, the idea of taking the atmosphere. Please, have some fun with it. Keep track yourself, and maybe you'll be surprised by how many teams you haven't seen, how many teams you have seen. Before we let you go, I told you there would be a rant, and we're going to try to do this a little bit more often. Again, the rant doesn't necessarily mean I'm against something. I might be supportive of it, but it's just my opportunity to op-ed, if you don't mind. So let's talk about this one. We'll start off with the 10-second violation in women's basketball. I will freely admit that when collegiate women's basketball first started experimenting with a 10-second violation, I was just a bit leery, maybe even against it. Why would we change what is an interesting quirk in the women's game? I also contended for many years that if we did add to that violation, we should consider changing the shot clock to 35 seconds, just like in the men's game. However, the more I did think about it, the more I talked to coaches in both the men's and women's basketball, the more I realized it was crazy there wasn't a 10-second violation. Women's college basketball is the only level of basketball that didn't have this violation. Of course, the rule should be implemented, right? And so it has been done. And they didn't change the shot clock either, by the way. And I'm totally fine with that. In fact, I think they need to shorten the men's clock. What? You may be asking? Yeah, the men's shot clock is the longest in any level of basketball. NBA, international, high school, and now even college, since the women are down to 30 seconds. Why are teams being given 5 more seconds than most levels to get the ball to the rim? The extra time simply isn't needed. But the best reason may have come from the coaches I talked to in Atlanta this year and at other times. At the time, the common conversation about the game, especially at the collegiate level and its rules, was how scoring was way down and had been falling for years. Many suggested changes to improve this, including the emphasis on the calling, hand checking, and grabbing of defenders, something, by the way, I fully support and will rant on in the coming weeks. However, the shot clock idea really stuck out at me. If we want more scoring at the college level, take 5 seconds off the clock. That will add a number of additional possessions to most college games at all 3 divisions. Furthermore, it will reward good defenses by forcing offenses to take shots sooner and get the ball up the court faster. How can you not be in favor of this? Why should the men's collegiate game be the slowest on any level? Why shouldn't we boost scoring by adding more possessions to the game? Of course, some will argue, as they have prior to the women adding the 10-second violation, that it will only increase turnovers, make the game sloppy. How do I ask? These players have come up from the high school level where the shot clock is already shorter. The same on the women's side with a 10-second violation. How will the new violation add to turnovers when the players are already used to the violation in the first place? So let's embrace the idea of a 10-second violation in women's basketball and call for a 30-second shot clock in the men's game. Oh, and while we're at it, why in the world do the men and women's basketball rules have different rules? You know what? Let's save that for another rant. So there's your Hoopsville rant to start the season officially on the air. Hope you've enjoyed the show. Thank you again to all my guests. I certainly appreciate it. We will be taking a hiatus for Thanksgiving. As I said ahead of Gordon's interview, I can't get away with doing a show on Thanksgiving. You might be able to get away with watching a show on Thanksgiving, and bravo if you can, but I'm not going to get away with doing a show. So we will be back on the air in December, believe it or not. It will be December 5th to be exact. I will warn you now, that will be a pre-recorded show as well. Family conflict getting in the way of that one, but it will be just as good, we hope, as this one, though I can't help you with the technical difficulties on Lip Flap. We probably won't solve them by December 5th in 2 weeks. But please stay tuned to Hoopsville throughout the season. Again, lots of live shows ahead, I promise you. We'll have some more rants along the way. We may even put out something special next week if I can find the video that I have misplaced, just to tide you over, as it were. But in the meantime, thank you again to all my guests for tuning in. Thank you for watching the entire show if you've gotten to this point. And I encourage you once again, if you have an opportunity to go to the Hoopsville Classic, please do so. Furthermore, watch it online. We will have our broadcasts online. Frank Rossi, Gordon Mann, myself, and one of the deans of basketball in the Mid-Atlantic region, Jeff Gamber, will be on the call for those games. Gordon will join us on Friday. Then it'll be the three of us the rest of the weekend. Please join us. We would love to have you in some capacity. Let us know you're watching it. Hashtag for the event is HVille Classic. HVILLECLASSIC. HVille Classic is a hashtag for the Hoopsville Classic. Of course, the hashtag for the show is Hoopsville. Follow us at D3 Hoopsville. Follow us also on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville and email us at hoopsville@d3hoops.com. Thank you again for tuning in, everybody. We certainly appreciate it. Looking forward to more basketball, especially at the Hoopsville Classic. By the way, if you're there, make sure you say hi if you see me either going by casually or maybe in a hurry. At least say hi and introduce yourself. I'd love to see the fans who are out there who come to attend. That'll do it for the second week of Hoopsville. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hoopsville is presented by D3Hoops.com, the National Association of Basketball Coaches. We'll see you back on the air on December 5th.